This is the 3 Arts Workshop, week 6, and this week in grammar we're taking on the staggering but glorious challenge of diagramming complex and compound complex sentences. So here we go. Two main types of clauses, just a bit of review: independent, subject and verb, complete thought; dependent, subject and verb, incomplete thought. Example of independent: I walk my dog. Example of dependent: when I walk my dog. The first is complete, the second is incomplete. Both have subject and verb. There are 3 types of dependent clauses: noun, adjective, and adverb. Noun functions as a noun in the sentence. Adjective, like a single adjective, modifies a noun in the sentence. Adverb clause modifies a verb in the sentence. Example of a noun clause: he believes that I stole his lunch. That I stole his lunch has a subject and a verb, but that whole thing is functioning as a direct object in the sentence. It is what he believes. The person who told you that lied. Who told you that has something subject-y, who, something verb-y, a verb, told. And the whole thing is adjectival because it's answering the question, which person? Which person lied? The person who told you that. Example of adverb clause: I never use a napkin when I eat. When I eat has a subject and a verb, and that thing there also has a subordinating conjunction, when. The whole thing answers the question, when. When do I never use a paper napkin? When I eat. Noun clauses can go anywhere nouns go. So you can have a noun clause as the subject of a sentence, as the direct object of a sentence, as the indirect object of a sentence. Anywhere a noun can go, a noun clause can go. Whatever you want to order for pizza is fine by me. That whole thing, whatever you want to order for pizza, that has a subject, you, verb, want, relative pronoun, whatever. The whole thing is the subject of that sentence. That is what is fine by me. I admire that you enjoyed Tolstoy's War and Peace. That you enjoyed Tolstoy's War and Peace has a subject, you, has a verb, enjoyed, an expletive, that. The whole thing is the direct object. It is what I admire. Give my advice on investing to whomever you please. Whomever you please has subject, you, and verb, please. The whole thing comes after the to in the sentence and is indirectly affected by the action, give. It is the indirect object of the sentence. It's not what's being given, but it is indirectly affected by the giving. Okay, I just used some terms a moment ago that may have been unfamiliar. Relative pronoun, expletive, that. What are all these things here in these noun clauses? Let's explain. Noun clauses may be accompanied by either the expletive that, which is simply the word that, and it's expletive because it's not actually denoting anything. It's not expletive because it's bad words. Expletive because it doesn't have any kind of referent. It's just a word that connects the noun clause to the rest of the sentence. Might also have a relative pronoun, which can function as both a word in the clause, in the noun clause, and then also the glue that cements the noun clause to the rest of the sentence. Then you have a subordinating conjunction like when, like the one I just used in that example sentence a moment ago, when I eat. Let's look at examples of each of these. Dante recognizes that poetry contains wisdom. Want to diagram this, we would note that Roman poetry contains wisdom is our noun clause because that whole thing is standing in for the direct object. But still, we need to go slowly and diagram this piece by piece. Recognizes, that's our main verb. Dante, that's our subject. So we put those two on our baseline. And then we draw a pedestal for the noun clause. That realm in poetry contains wisdom. Well, here's the best way to go about diagramming a noun clause. It's the same as diagramming any old clause on the baseline. It's just that now this goes on its own pedestal baseline. And you can do the pedestal baseline a little bit differently in different cases. It's not an exact thing or something that needs exactitude. But the main idea is to have these two little legs, then with the stem going up, and then a baseline that has a clearly visible vertical line. Okay. Now let's take apart this little noun clause and find the verb, subject, and then figure out what to do with the rest of the words. Okay, verb, contains, that goes on the baseline here. Poetry, subject, that goes where the subject goes. Roman, that's an adjective we see modifying poetry, so we put it on a diagonal descending line just like any adjective. And wisdom, that is the direct object, that is what the poetry contains. Goes right there like a normal baseline. Okay, we mentioned this word that, the expletive that. What do we do with that? It doesn't denote anything. It goes on its own little pedestal above a dotted line above the verb of the noun clause. I like to think of these as, it's almost like they look like those little balloons that sometimes car dealers or stores put out front when they have a big sale or on opening day or something like that. It just floats there on its little balloon, but it's important that you put the balloon above the verb. Okay, that's how you diagram the expletive that. Whatever Yolanda is watching must be a good film. Whatever Yolanda is watching is our noun clause, and that relative pronoun there clues us in. We can see by its placement in the sentence, by its context, that here it is the subject of the sentence. Whatever Yolanda is watching, that's the thing, that's the subject. That must be a good film. Right. So, let's color code this. Must be is our verb structure, and then this whole noun clause, that's the subject. So I put my pedestal in the subject spot, must be in the verb spot, and then I just begin looking at the parts of the noun clause. Is watching, that's our progressive aspect verb. Is watching goes in the verb spot, and then Yolanda, the subject, goes in the subject spot. Now, this element here, that's the relative pronoun we were discussing a moment ago. And the relative pronoun relates this material in the noun clause to the rest of the sentence. It itself, though, is a part of the sentence. It's not going to float on a balloon like the that word, our expletive that, above the pedestal. It's going to be a part of the pedestal. And the question is, what do I do with whatever? Well, if I think about it for a moment, I can see that after I put is watching my verb and Yolanda in the subject spot, I can see that whatever is actually the direct object of that clause. Think about it this way. If I reversed the word ordering, I said, Yolanda is watching whatever. That sounds right, right? Yolanda is watching whatever. You could almost substitute in the word, a word for that relative pronoun, like whichever film it might be, Top Gun, right? Yolanda is watching Top Gun. Then that makes more sense, how whatever would be the direct object of the sentence. I put it there on the pedestal where the direct object goes, and I've actually completed diagramming my noun clause. Now I move on to these last three words. Here we have the subject complement of this main idea here. Must be a good film. And I just put a and good modifiers beneath the subject complement below. Okay, here we're going to diagram a subordinating conjunction in a noun clause. Most wizards do not remember when they became wizards. There you have it. Well, this last bit is the direct object because it's what most wizards do not remember. Do not remember, that's our main verb structure,
Not, we have to note, is actually an adverb, a negative adverb that goes beneath the verb structure. I'll show you that in a moment. And then most wizards, wizards being subject, most being modifier. So the first part of the sentence is diagrammed like this. I put my negative adverb beneath the verb and then combine do and remember on the baseline. Most goes beneath wizards. Then I diagram this noun clause just again like I would diagram any other independent clause, only the question will be what I do with that subordinating conjunction. So I make a pedestal according to these color-coded items here. Became goes in the verb spot, they goes in the subject spot, wizards, subject complement, goes on the other side of the slanty line. What do I do with when? Well, think about it this way. If when is a part of the pedestal structure, then where would it go? Well, it seems it's adverbial, right? When goes beneath the verb right there. They became wizards when, right? So when is adverbial because when is one of those 4 adverb questions. When, where, how, under what circumstances.